Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Gateway Open Office Hours, episode 47. I'm your host, Carter Laren, here with my co-host, Ben Larson, who built the lovely set that we're in now. We've got a new set.
We're in
a new place. We've moved upstairs. We will have a periodic guest, which is the Amtrak train across the street, a little bit more frequently than we did when we were in our other location, but much nicer studio. And we get to stand up, which I've been wanting to stand up always.
It's about elevating the energy a little bit, right?
Elevating the energy. I think I mentioned episode 47. Obviously, get us on podcast. You can download us on iTunes, Google Play. We're on YouTube. Clearly, we're on Facebook if you're watching live right now every Friday at 10 a.m. I want to talk this week. So first of all, there's news.
There's news.
First of all, you had a child. Well, your wife technically did most of the work.
I think that's how they say it.
Okay, so you and Rush had a child. Alistair was born a couple weeks ago, and you have been not on camera since then. So this is your
not on camera.
You're back.
He was born the morning of 2 shows ago, and then
yes.
I was sitting in the background of the last show.
Yes. Bleary-eyed, and still a little bit bleary-eyed now, but
yeah, it's been an amazing experience.
Congratulations to you.
I
mean, obviously we've said it, but
yeah,
the community congratulates you. I'll speak for the audience.
I appreciate that. Yeah, everyone's been very warm, and I'm surprised at how far the word has traveled that I've had a son. So
awesome.
It's great.
Everyone's really excited for you. Oh, I'm really excited for you to be a parent. I'm sure Alistair's excited for you to be a parent.
I'm excited for me to be a parent. I get to finally justify my dad's shoes.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. That's cool. And you can have a dad bod. I mean, it'll take you a while to get to where I am, but,
nope.
Rush
does not approve of this message.
Well, yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So that's the number one piece of news this week. But also the hero of the libertarian movement, Rand Paul, suggested the very bold move of moving cannabis to Schedule II, which is a total douchebag. I was going to say something crass do something subserviently crass to the pharmaceutical industry, but I decided to not say that directly.
It's just, I mean,
just a horrible move. A horrible move.
All the libertarian leaders are seemingly falling apart at the seams.
Yeah. How about removing it completely? I don't know.
That would be more libertarian.
Where did that argument go from the? I don't know. Well, I guess Ron Paul was the libertarian hero. Rand Paul, I think, is less so. But still, for Rand to suggest moving to Schedule II is like,
I think we've about hit my quota for politics for the week.
Yeah, well, I think we hit that on Monday. But Michael, there was no other news, right? There's nothing else exciting. Princessa, you don't know anything?
Nope.
The entire studio audience can't come up with any.
We do have room for a studio audience now, which
kind of. Yeah, we do. We do.
In.
Look, we have chairs.
And power tools.
And power tools. Yes, Ben was literally power tooling right off camera over here about 5 minutes ago.
I'm glad the landlord didn't come in.
It makes me. Don't worry about it. It doesn't give me any heartburn when we're about to go live. When you, I look up from the computer and I'm hearing a drill into the wall.
Just making sure things don't fall off the walls.
It's good. So what I wanted to spend this episode. So you ambushed me a couple months ago with a. We're just going to interview you.
Okay.
So I wanted to interview you.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I ambushed you.
Fine, you gave me some heads up. I gave you a little bit heads up.
Okay.
So you gave me similar heads up, I think.
Yeah, I have no idea where this is going.
Yeah, so no, it's okay. So you said something the other day, and it got me thinking. So you were scheduled to go mentor, I think, like maybe the night or the weekend or something, right after Alistair was born. Mm-hmm. You were scheduled to mentor.
Yeah.
And instead of that, what you did was, obviously you didn't go.
No.
Good dad.
Yeah.
Good dad.
Yeah.
But instead you wrote a blog post that was like, okay, here are my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think you wrote this in the post, but what you told me was, well, because I said, wow, Ben, you're like sitting in the hospital writing blog posts about building a founding team. Right, yeah. And but what you said to me was, well, I'm going to have to teach him this anyway someday. I might as well just like start documenting things that I want to teach Alistair.
Yeah.
And so that got me to thinking, you and I talk about founders a lot, and like we give advice to founders a lot.
Right.
But I wanted to talk a little bit about, before you're a founder, what are the things that you need to do to even really rationally make the decision to try and be a founder? And I started to think about your background. And you have, I mean, maybe other than like Adeo and John, who are the founders of Founder Institute, you have probably the most exposure to the earliest, the biggest number of earliest stage founders of almost anyone I know, I think.
Could most likely be true.
Like mostly entrepreneurs,
I've never thought
in
about it in
fairness,
that
right?
sense,
But
but
like,
yes.
but like you've just got, there's a lot of VCs who have experience like talking to founders, but they're seeing founders that are far along, like they've done something, right? They're vetted and they're
Life
far along.
has vetted them.
Right.
Are they still surviving? Yeah.
Right, but you've seen thousands of people who literally just have an idea, sometimes don't even have an idea, just want to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I feel like that makes you uniquely positioned to kind of look at the population as a whole rather than kind of the pre-vetted entrepreneurs that VCs see, and kind of give advice to people about founding generally. And let's talk about some of the things that you think they need to have prepared in their lives before it makes sense for them to say, I'm going to quit my job at Google, or I'm going to do whatever and go start a company. So it's open-ended, but give me your thoughts just on that. Let's start with that.
Well, it's funny. I've been thinking about this actually quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. Not necessarily in this organized fashion, but it's just kind of like, what do I want to impart on him as he grows older?
Yep.
And thinking about the founders and thinking about him, it comes down to two things for me, and I've probably mentioned both of these separately, but curiosity and resourcefulness, right?
Yep.
Curiosity is like probably one of the biggest things. It's something that is inherent in me. Like the kid sniffling last night, so I start jumping into books and on Google, like figuring out all the different things it could be, all the different ways to solve it. Like I'm looking up like what an aspirator is and where I can get one at a 24-hour CVS.
Do you need some Valium? I feel like
saline drops, cold mist humidifier, like all these things. I'm like, my knowledge was instantly expanded, like on how to treat a child with a cold, and it was just like, I feel that not everyone has that, but it's a skill set that can easily be added to your toolbox.
Why don't you think everyone has that? Because, like, how do you impart that in Alistair? You can't just say, be curious.
I think it's
right?
asking him questions instead of telling him answers, right?
Okay.
Answering a question with a question, as everyone loves to do.
Okay.
But it's just like, I don't know if it's one of the old Guy Kawasaki books or something talks about like how Toyota imparted the 5 whys, and constantly asking why something is occurring and learning out what truly is the source of it and how to solve it and all that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of people are growing up with solutions so readily available to them. We have Insta this, Insta that, and like it becomes so easy to get the solution, where sometimes it's just better to figure it out yourself on the front end.
Yeah.
And then maybe later on make the decision to pay for it to be done, but again, just figuring out how to do it. And then the other half of that is the resourcefulness. Like, do you have the tools to get it done? And like, do you have something else? I didn't have an electronic aspirator last night, but I had this little squeezy thing that had a tube at the end of it, so I'm like sucking snot out of the kid's nose. And it seemed to work. He would like stop crying for, once.
5 minutes?
Yeah. No, he's been a great kid. Last night I was at the end of my whim because it's been a long
He'll see
week.
this someday and forgive you.
Yeah. But the great thing, we're tangentializing, is that a word?
It is now.
Entrepreneurship trained me for last night, right? Like,
yeah, talk about that, because you said that you came in this morning and I was like, did you get some sleep finally because you were feeling under the weather?
Yeah.
And you said, entrepreneurship trained me for last night.
Yeah, it's just like
so what
in
happens?
entrepreneurship, when you think things couldn't get worse, it's like, all right, we're gonna like work our way out of this. It's like we're rock bottom, and all of a sudden the floor drops out, and you're like, fuck me. Well, so like last night, I'm like, all right, I've spent every last ounce of energy. Like I can, your body starts telling you, it's like, all right, shutdown mode.
Right.
And I get home, I'm like, ooh, bed. I'm gonna get solid 7 hours of sleep. probably. And then I hear the baby sniffling. And I'm like, oh, what's going on over here? and then, yeah, long story short, I get 4 hours of sleep last night. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm used to this. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, battle mode.
Is it so? I mean, the big question for me is, when's it appropriate to teach Alistair about liquidation preferences?
Well,
Sorry.
to say I haven't started would be disingenuous. No, it's just I don't know. I've often been told just speak plain English to the kid. So I have ever since. Like I'm like, you don't need to be crying. You are better than this. There are much harder things in life that you will.
Wow.
And
That's some tough love there, buddy.
And he like stares at me, and I'm like, did any of that sink in? Probably not.
No.
At some point it will, and I will just have.
I think he's looking up, going like, "There's a big person.
There's a big blob in front of me
who's paying attention to me. That's good.
Yeah.
That's better. Yay."
He's got a deeper voice than the other one. With
He
the
probably
food.
recognizes your voice a little bit.
Yeah.
Because they can hear while they're in utero.
Well, so yeah, I mean, for me, parenting started, 10 months ago.
Yeah.
I've been reading to him and talking to him ever since, we knew he was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting oddly deep.
No,
into
that's
the
okay. That's
parenting
okay.
side.
Yeah. I mean, the parenting thing is kind of the. I like talking about parenting. I don't know how much our audience likes it, but I think there's value in the analogy because you're starting with this raw material in some sense, right? And it's people don't have to grow up to be entrepreneurs. That's not like there's nothing special about being an entrepreneur.
Right.
But if they want to be an entrepreneur, they have to have had not necessarily certain experiences, but have developed themselves in certain ways to be successful. So let's get back to something you said about resourcefulness, and how do you? I guess you mentioned resourcefulness and curiosity. When you see people who want to be founders, what are some of the biggest? People always talk about like what are the biggest hurdles to being a successful founder.
Yeah.
But what are the biggest hurdles but they're talking about a subset of people who have founded.
Yeah.
Right. What are the kind of biggest hurdles or problems, or I don't want to call them problems, but reasons why people end up deciding that they don't want to be founders? Like, what are the personality traits and things that kind of you see that because founders, we were also talking about this the other day.
Yeah.
Like 2/3 of the people drop out; they don't make it through the semester.
Right.
So they end up not really founding a company. Like,
there's a couple things at play, right? Like being a founder, entrepreneurship, startup life has been glamorized in Silicon Valley, and people are disillusioned into what the experience is like. They're like, oh, I'm going to be my own boss. I'm going to make my own hours. I'm going to, be rich and famous, and all those things are fucking false. And
Right.
it's if you are one of the lucky few that do get to be rich and hopefully not famous,
right.
a
lot of the famous is people like Travis. Which
Yeah.
is not necessarily good.
Right. But even then, 7 years down the road, that might happen to you. But are you willing to slog it out for 7 years? We saw, I don't know if I'm good. I should just say, yeah. We saw like a pitch recently where they had their financials mapped out, and the 3 C-level people were making 6-digit
From
salaries.
day one, it was like, we need a little bit of investment to start paying ourselves.
Yeah. My response was like, your numbers seem a little out of whack. Are you willing to adjust this if you have no revenue model and your funders don't want to pay you 6 figures?
Right.
Yeah.
Did they ever respond out of curiosity?
I haven't checked my email.
Okay. But we were talking about this, actually, Princessa and I were talking about this yesterday with in the cannabis. We can circle back to cannabis a little bit. There's a lot of talk, there's a lot of excitement about the cannabis industry. And in Oakland in particular, there's a lot of talk about, there's this equity program and there's a lot of like excitement going on. You can come in the industry and make a lot of money. And I think there's kind of almost a get-rich quick mentality. And I'm wondering what are some of the things that you think? So you've got to have curiosity, you've got to have resourcefulness. Just from a practical perspective, can anyone just I'm curious and I'm resourceful, like I'm gonna go, or is there something else that you need to kind of prepare?
Wow. Yeah,
I'm throwing you on the spot here for this.
No,
but
I
like,
mean, it's so much in the cannabis industry, especially, but like pretty much in every industry, it's like, being self-aware and knowing where you fit in the food chain and kind of how to navigate relationships and build relationships, super important, especially in this industry because, God, if I go a day without getting contacted by 5 different consultants that want to charge six figures a year to a new startup, I'm like, how much money do you think is actually here? Yes, it's a booming industry and it's going to be a huge industry, but people are scraping by. Like, every other person I talk to in the industry, they're helping out 3 different companies on the side and they got this thing going on. And I'm like, it's a green rush.
Kind of.
Yeah. But, not a lot of people are making tons of money in this industry yet.
Right. So, I mean, talk about the money for a second because, you mentioned people coming in like, oh, we want to raise money and make 6 figures and blah, blah, blah. I think maybe people they underestimate how long they might go without making any money. And therefore, like, they probably need to come in. I hate to say it, but you kind of need to come in with a little bit of a nest egg and some cushion.
Totally.
To any startup.
Yeah, any startup, but cannabis, this is magnified because there is more due diligence that occurs. There are less funders out there. And you need to do a couple things. You need to build further. So you need to prove out, you have a proof of concept, get something that's actually interesting. An idea is not going to cut it, right? This is all about execution risk that, like you've mentioned before. And the only way to prove execution is to execute. Maybe you've done it before and maybe you've been a successful founder. You're probably not watching. That being said, you're going to need to last longer in that fashion. And if you are building something that requires volume over revenue model, that means you're going to be doing it without any income.
Right.
Even after that, to do a successful funding round, I would say on average it's taking people 9 months to a year to do their rounds.
So let's zero in on that for a second.
Yeah.
9 months to a year to do, and we're talking about probably your first angel round, maybe even, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's 9 months to a year of no income, right? So you've got to be able to eat and pay your rent or whatever.
Well, and I was talking to one of our mentors yesterday about this, cash management.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of people at risk in the current generation that haven't been taught the cash management tactics that a lot of the previous generations had been taught.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to shit talk millennials like I typically do. It's just I find that a lot of founders need to be taught cash management. It's not something that we have historically focused on because it's like, well, there's only so many things you can focus on in like a 6-month period, but it's one of those things that it's like kind of rising to the top for me. It's like, how do you stretch, $50,000?
But isn't that something that they should learn before they even want to be a founder? Like, it's something that you plan to teach Alistair regardless of whether.
Yeah, I mean, that would be great. Like, I remember my father, he grew up in retail and that kind of stuff, and I would help him when I was growing up. And when you give change to someone, especially if it's a large bill, you count it back to them.
Right.
Like, I've walked into places now, and, I give them a $100 bill, and they give me a pile of cash with some change on top in there. Right. Here you go. And I'm like, you going to make me count that?
Right.
Like, not to be a dick, but please count it back to me.
Right.
It's like, congratulations, life lesson. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I think
I get really fired up about it just because it's like the value of a dollar is so important. And it's like, yeah, there's an element of entrepreneurship. You can argue it the other way. It's like, yeah, you have to be able to take risks and all that kind of stuff, but still you have to be able to like evaluate what that risk is,
Right. And the idea that you're going to walk in with a PowerPoint deck and, that will help you make your rent next month is not.
Yeah. I mean,
probably not what's going to happen.
One of the best ways to make an investor fall in love with you is to show them how scrappy you are and how far you can make that dollar stretch.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to rely on even a $75,000 salary, like, out of the gate, like, you're going to get some people that just say no based on that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I've been the type of person to always be able to create money when I need it, right? It's like, I'll go do photography and I'll take people's headshots and there's money there, or I'll design websites, even though I didn't go to school for that, you know.
So that's another thing I want to talk about, because who knows what the world is going to look like when Alistair's the age to even consider being an entrepreneur.
Sure.
But if you're trying to help him down that path, like, what would you suggest? Like, should he go to college? What would he study? Like, what should he study in high school? Like, what are some things that he
question.
should?
You know how I feel about college.
Oh, that's fine. But like, okay, then high school. Like, what should he study? What subjects matter? What's not being taught to founders? When you see founders come in, or people wanting to be founders, what skill sets? I mean, we talked about money management. Are there any other skill sets that they're missing that maybe used to be taught, should be taught? If you were the god of early education, like, what would you do?
Sure. A sense of creating something. Creating something from the ground up is super important, whether it's a club or a small side business, freelancing.
So you freelanced a lot when you were younger too, right?
I have done everything.
We've talked about this before. You've done. So wait, list off some, because it's pretty eclectic.
Yeah. I mean, let's see. When I first entered college, I worked for the police department, and I managed the local student chapter there. I then went on to construction and did excavating, so digging 30-foot trenches and laying ground pipe and all that kind of stuff. Went into maintenance for apartment buildings, because there's a lot of turnover in college towns. Then worked in an auto shop, and then fast food, fine dining, and that was just college.
So can I
was in college a little bit longer than most people.
Yeah, but I want to stop for a minute, because all of the jobs that you just mentioned,
it's hard work,
are back-breaking, like they're physical, hard work. I mean, fast food maybe not as back-breaking, but I've done fast food as well. It's a lot of like, it's not a very mental job, right? It's a lot of like.
I took a lot of pride
sweating
in my sandwiches.
Fair. Yes, I think we've talked about Quiznos before on the show. But I think there's a lot of, at least what I'm seeing, there's a lot of people who kind of feel like that stuff is beneath them somehow. Like, younger people come in like, oh, I want to go run a software company. Being a maintenance tech isn't going to help me.
Getting that out of your system before you become an entrepreneur is very healthy.
So that's, okay.
Like, once I was an entrepreneur, there's times where I'm like, I'll admit it, I was applying to be a desk person at a gym just to like get some cash flow coming in while I was like still working at my company. I'm like, this is not beneath me. And, of course, my wife was like staring at me like, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
I'm like,
nothing's beneath me.
Yeah, making shit happen. When I was doing it as a source of income as a college student, I just looked at it as the positives that I was receiving from the experiences. When it came to construction, all that kind of stuff, I'm like, oh, well, I don't have to go to the gym as often because I'll just break my back, while getting a nice tan and, relieving some stress from college.
Yeah.
In the auto shop, I loved cars, and I just learned how to work on cars, and, had a lot of fun, would bring my own car in and work on it and save some money there. So yeah, I mean, every odd end job I saw going towards something, and most importantly, they're all, in one sense or another, service oriented, and it makes you become very customer focused, right? And really focusing on what the customer wants, and again, not being above whatever it takes to make the customer happy.
Yep.
And so that has completely bled over into what I do. I think anyone that works in and out of this office sees me doing everything from, wearing a suit and meeting with investors to working the table saw and building a set.
Yeah, I wish we had like a camera operator. I could like tell him to point the camera around the room a little bit. But I mean, so this is something that I've noticed about you in particular. I've noticed about other entrepreneurs as well. Actually, my friend Aaron comes to mind, is kind of someone who just, no matter what project it is, they're not the kind of person whose immediate thought is, oh, I need to hire someone to do blank. Their immediate thought is like, I will figure out how to do blank, and I will do blank. And so for you, for example, like, you went to Home Depot and like built this and built that and built this and
and I found out we were moving the studio last Friday, right?
Right.
So it's
and you did all this immediate, like you did it in like a couple days.
Yeah. It's just like that. I don't know. I went to Cal Poly. We had the learn by doing, attitude, and a lot of the people actually that I went to school, I find like come out. I don't know what it is actually that they're teaching, and when I talk shit about higher education. Usually I omit Cal Poly. But, you know.
Allegiances.
Yeah, you know, I love, it's a great town. Anyways, I could do a whole podcast about SLO. But yeah, I forgot where I was going. I don't know.
Well, we were just talking about, like, you know, something that strikes me, like, you know, people have heard of Mike Rowe, where he went and did the dirty jobs, right? And I think a lot of people don't view those jobs as stepping stones towards anything bigger, and kind of shy away from that. And I think when you're talking about resourcefulness, I think one of the reasons that you're very resourceful is because you've done all of these different things, so nothing seems intimidating at that point. It's like, oh, build a studio band. And you're like, well, I've built some stuff. Like, I guess I could figure out how to build a studio. Like, it's not totally foreign to you,
well,
right?
And the other, you know, a lot of people use the excuse, it's like, oh, I'm not creative and stuff like that. I'm not. Okay, I'm creative.
You're pretty creative. But I use that excuse so that you have to do all the aesthetic work, but just, you know, to be clear.
It's more than creativity, I'm always drawing from something, so I like to say I'm more observant than anything. You know, like, I'm on different apps looking at different designs, and it's just like filing away in my head. And when like, I didn't invent this shit.
Right.
I didn't think to put AstroTurf on the wall. Actually, that was Michael. Thank you, Michael.
There you go.
And yeah, I mean, it's just
inspired by Airbnb's Vines or whatever.
Right, exactly. You know, it's creativity is just an amalgamation of different skill sets, and it's about observing things, being resourceful, and then doing it yourself. You know.
Okay, so Alistair comes to you. He's 15, and he says, "Dad, I'm sorry, but I want to be an entrepreneur."
Well, hopefully it's not. He's not waiting till 15 to tell me that.
Fine, but what, you know, you know, maybe he's talked about it a lot. He's making some decisions between being an entrepreneur and some respectable careers, and you have. he comes to you and he says, "I'm sorry, like you know, I really want to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
What do I do? Like, what should I do now? Like, what should I study in college? What should I do? Sure. Is there a templatized answer, or is it just?"
I feel like the templatized answer will have changed 15 years from now.
Probably. What would it be today?
It would be why. Like, why do you want to be an entrepreneur? And, like, what do you want to do? Like, what... Like, I hope that is built on a foundation of liking to solve problems, liking to do things on your own, like, liking to have an impact. And, like, if it is coming from there, I'd be like, okay, you know, what's the problem? And what is going to give you the best toolbox to solve that problem? Because at 15, you still have the opportunity to go and really kind of like hone in on what's going to like give you the best toolbox. But, you know, when you're mid-30s, you kind of just have to work with what you have and then, you know, backfill what you don't.
Right.
You know, I don't learn fast enough anymore, so it's it's hard to pick up coding or something like that.
Oh, you could do it. I think. You just don't have time.
I don't have time.
Yes, partly because of the future 15-year-old.
Now, but you know, would it be college? I mean, just so I can stay married and like not have my entire family pissed off at me, like probably. But hopefully it's a different form of college. Hopefully it's a college that maybe encourages you to launch a company while you're in school and like uses that as a proxy.
We're going to build that college.
I know.
That's a separate issue.
I'm foreshadowing our future endeavor. You know, you learn by actually launching and running a company.
Yeah.
And maybe year 2 is, growth phase. And year 3 is, you know, public markets or something like that. You know, it's. I think that would be awesome. And hopefully it's only 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
Because, well, I spent more than 4.
And doesn't put you in hundreds of thousands of dollars into debt. That would be nice as well.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm also a great civil engineer now, so there's that.
That's been very useful. Let's talk a little bit about the other thing that I think is unique about you. So you've had a lot of experience with super early stage entrepreneur people. Mm-hmm. You've also you're also kind of pretty active in the European entrepreneurship community. At least, you know, you're especially in Germany, but you're in Europe a lot, right? Can you just talk about that a little bit? Because we had people may have heard us talk about Luke before. He was often behind the camera on the other side, and he's now considering going to Europe to do some entrepreneur stuff.
Yeah.
I had my thoughts about the value of the European entrepreneur ecosystem and what he could learn there. But I'd love to hear, talk about Europe.
Yeah. Let me preface this with there have been some great things that came out of Europe.
All right, we know where we're going.
No, I mean, okay, so it all stems from the startup communities having a desire to replicate the magic that has occurred here in Silicon Valley. And what that source of that magic is, no one will know, or people can postulate. But what we do know now is that there's a lot of capital here, there's a lot of talent, and it's just this kind of, risk taker mentality, and just like failure is accepted, and all this kind of stuff. That is super unique, and we certainly live in a bubble here. The Europeans, be it London, Berlin, even in like Portugal and Spain, everyone's trying to recreate that je ne sais quoi, right? Even France,
yes,
in that sense.
Yes. Ironically enough.
Ironically enough, yes. But there seems to always be lacking something, right? And a lot of times in the European culture, I feel like it's the safety net, or the presence of the safety net is actually.
You mean there's a bigger safety net?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, be it guaranteed healthcare or education or job protection, these kind of things, while great as, someone that wants to live just a healthy lifestyle, and it's great, be happy. I think, the Dutch community or something is like the happiest on earth or something.
And I just want to clarify, cannabis has been part of their culture for quite some time. Is that correct?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
They have enjoyed it quite some time
I'm just
now.
kidding.
No, but it's like, does that create the best entrepreneurs? Like, people, entrepreneurs could look at that and be like, ooh, that'd be nice. That would make me willing to take more risks.
Right.
But is that going to make you the best survivalist? Is that going to make you like the best person to like win at all costs? Like,
so this is interesting, right? Because there's a lot of discussion right now about universal basic income and about a larger safety net in general. And the argument that I hear
mediocrity
is, what I hear is like, that will help people be entrepreneurs because they won't have to worry about X, Y, and Z, and they'll have more time to do what they love. But you're saying the opposite.
A fallacy. No, that's incorrect. I mean, I'm not saying that basic income is wrong.
I'll say that, but you cannot say it if you
there.
want to.
I'm just saying it's not going to create better entrepreneurs.
And you think the reason for that is what? Just that they...
It's the fear of, or not the fear of failure, but learning how to fail and what that means and what are the trade-offs.
So the stress of maybe not actually having it.
I don't want every Joe Blow going in, or Jill Blow going and creating a company.
Michael's
Sorry,
now.
Was that a bad term?
Yeah, Michael's crying.
I was trying to be politically correct and
then
went the completely wrong direction.
Yeah, that was good.
Guy or girl.
Fix that in post.
I don't want any guy or girl going out and just creating company because they can.
Right.
I want someone to want it bad enough to where I'm going to quit my corporate job that I'm on a great salary and have benefits, and this problem means enough to me to go do this.
To risk some stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
There has to be a risk.
It's interesting. I hadn't thought of this until you just said this, but we have previously talked about why innovation programs at large companies who are trying to kind of recreate the startup ecosystem fail generally.
Yeah.
Or the startup experience. And one of the reasons that we've said in the past that fails is they keep paying people their corporate salaries and they have healthcare, and there's not that kind of scrappy, tough, shitty risk. Yeah. And so if you're at the large company's incubator thing, but you're just an employee for the large company building your thing, you don't have the same stressors that an entrepreneur in a more free market has. Right. And as a result, you actually don't learn to become lean and pivot in the right time and do the right thing and focus on the right thing. And you don't have that drive. You're actually not as incentivized because if you fail, you still got your healthcare and your job. It's not a big deal.
And people have tried to solve this in different fashions without going far enough. I have my own solution, which I'll get into, but they've done it on-site. They've tried to do it off-site. In fact, with Founder Institute, we had a group from a large tech company in Silicon Valley, and well, I wanted to kick all 4 of them out, within the first 2 weeks.
I remember that. Yeah.
I ended up only getting to kick 2 of them out because they had actually paid a significant amount of money to be in. The other 2 remained in, and it was just like getting them to get as motivated and to work, 40 hours in 3 days like I was getting the other guys to do. Like, it was just impossible. They had something to go back to. They didn't feel they needed to do this. Like, if these corporates actually want to create that atmosphere, fucking fire people and put them in. It's like, I'll give you some money if you hit these metrics.
Right. Yeah, no, we've talked about that. Like, if you want to do a corporate incubator, you need to strip away salaries.
Take away the safety net, right?
And the safety net from them and basically act like an investor.
Exactly.
But that's interesting. And do you think that the European culture, I mean, we all know the European culture is more, there's a bigger safety net. And
they're all a little bit more laissez-faire. It's...
Not in a economic sense.
Well, some like to take months off at a time.
I see.
Which not necessarily a bad thing, again, from a happy lifestyle, but from an entrepreneur perspective, especially in this industry, a lot changes in a month. That is a non-starter.
So you're making a kind of philosophic statement here. I think you may realize it, but I don't know. I want to call it out explicitly for everyone.
And people might disagree with me. Feel free to get...
No. You're saying entrepreneurship and happiness are not equivalent. In fact, you're saying that they're the opposite in many ways, right? But entrepreneurship isn't a path to happy.
No.
Right?
Actually, I started this blog. I don't know if you know this. I
don't stalk you as much as Michael does, but try me.
Michael might not even know. I started this blog, pretty early on in my entrepreneur career. It's called Happiness in the Pursuit.
Okay.
Because there is no happiness at the end of the road, right?
Right.
You need to learn how to be happy, and it's the only way to truly survive as an entrepreneur. Right. So, I am happy in what I'm doing.
Right. But not stressed.
No.
Right.
I mean, but I'm happy being stressed. I feel like I operate at my optimal level when I'm stressed. I found this out in college. Some called it procrastinating. I just called putting undue pressure on myself.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I can stay up for 2 days straight and cram and ace a test. That's just the way I perform best. So I just designed my life to kind of be like that.
Yeah.
I get sick occasionally, but it's all right.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think I was thinking about this the other day where on the one hand, there's this kind of philosophically, there's this drive to it'd be nice to kind of have a content life and be content. But on the other hand, I don't want to be content because lack of contentment is what drives me to do other things. And so I want some uneasiness in my life.
I think we talked about this when we were interviewing you. It was when you made your first when you made your first money, right? It was I all of a sudden found myself busier than I was.
Right.
With the fallacy that you were going to be less busy.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe someday I'll want to, quote unquote, retire and sit on a beach in Hawaii or something. But
I don't think you will.
Yeah, I don't sit well.
Unless you're redesigning the beach somehow and building a resort.
Well, you just ask my wife. Anytime we're on a beach, I lay there for 5 minutes and then I'm out paddleboarding or surfing or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair. So okay, so your kind of, just to wrap up the European thing,
right?
Your thoughts on Europe as in general, a lot of entrepreneurship activity, but they're missing something. Or
the other thing that makes Europe difficult, and this is just purely geographic, is or political. I don't know. It's just there are all these micro markets, right?
Yep.
The U.S. is one big ass market.
Well, EU's trying to fix the micro market thing, although
they're trying to, but
there's still different
language
cultures,
barriers, culture barriers, legal barriers, you name it. So as soon as you build out in your local market in Europe, you are quote unquote internationalizing, right?
Right.
And if you're going to internationalize, why not just do it once to the largest market?
Right.
And that's
China. I'm kidding.
Right. Hell, if I understood China more, which one would think I might, but,
Hey.
I don't.
Alistair will.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
It'll be forced.
Yeah, if I understood the Chinese market more, I'd probably spend a lot more attention over there. But it's far away.
Yeah. Okay. So so let's get back to kind of the cannabis entrepreneurs. Let's go back to the cannabis entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
You've got this, weird ecosystem in Europe.
Mhm.
Well, we talked about the history of Silicon Valley.
Yep.
Cannabis is kind of this in Silicon Valley, but elsewhere. But there's a lot of activity here.
Valley adjacent.
Valley adjacent, at least where we play in the cannabis space mostly. But Silicon Valley isn't the same as it was years and years ago, and this is kind of a new industry.
Sure.
I guess. Do you think let's ask this question first. Do you think Silicon Valley would develop in California today, or do you think it's momentum from the past that's keeping it the hub?
I don't if it started from the ground up today, I don't think it would build in the same fashion.
Why not?
There wasn't a lot of eyeballs on it before, and people could build kind of the way they wanted to build without too much fire. And again, without going too deep into politics, doing so these days. Let's put it this way. I don't think Travis would have been roasted as hard as he has been over the last several months had he been building back in the 90s.
Yeah, no. By the way, we're talking about Travis.
Travis from Uber. Yeah.
TK.
Again, not claiming whether he's right or wrong. I'm just
well, he was dumb enough to put Ariana Huffington on his board, which is my own. Whatever.
Is she really on it?
Yeah.
On Uber's board?
Yeah.
Huh.
Sorry, Ariana Huffington fans. Okay, so I actually, the reason I'm asking this, not just because I want you to get into politics a little bit, I know you're trying to skirt the issues, but I'm asking because cannabis is a very heavily, obviously it's federally illegal, but even at the state level, as we open up, it's very heavily regulated.
Yep.
And if you look at Oakland in particular, you've got a bunch of busybodies really trying to stick their nose in how everyone does everything, and you can do this but not that, and have to have this, and blah, blah, blah. And even at the state level, we saw the draft legislation come out. It's better than illegal, so I don't want to complain in the sense that
it's not a free market.
Right, but it's better than legal, but it's not a free market, right? It's nowhere near as free as semiconductors in 1970.
Right. Well,
right?
And technology has had the benefit of technology in of itself is not inherently illegal, right?
Right.
And so when you're pushing boundaries with tech, you're in this gray area.
All right.
And when we talk about gray area with cannabis, it's where is it illegal?
Right. The best you can get is gray area, basically.
What level is illegal?
Right.
And so the tech industry had a little bit of that benefit. Also, politically, it was just different. It was a little bit more Wild West.
Right. People weren't paying attention to every move that HP was making or whatever.
Yeah, they just as they got big enough to where people did recognize them, they made sure they had a strong legal team to kind of create new laws,
right?
Or defend themselves when they moved into new cities.
So if you are coming into the cannabis industry with, as we did, right, from Silicon Valley, kind of with a little bit more Wild West, I'm appalled at what happens at companies like Uber and whatever, and so and I don't mean the allegations, I mean kicking the founder out because Ariana Huffington, but I don't. We kind of expect that in the tech industry, to some extent. But the tech industry still has this kind of Wild West, kind of laissez-faire-ish undertone to it.
Yeah.
And coming into the cannabis industry,
the cannabis
you
industry
can't really bring that into the cannabis industry and without taking massive legal risks. You have to realize this isn't the same.
No, it's totally not the same. You need to understand and again be curious enough to kind of really read through how all these laws are going to affect your business, and also be agile enough to know that this might all change, a week from now or a month from now or a year from now, and to have contingency plans set. The interesting thing is not only do you have to worry about how the public perceives you, like you do in tech, but how the cities and the states and the federal government see you.
Right.
And, companies get shut down left and right because, oh, you talked a lot about cannabis on your website, and we're not going to allow you to import your product anymore.
Right.
And shit, you're out of,
right. It's way more
$100,000 of
scrutinized than tech. And
Yeah.
even Uber, who, I mean, since we've been talking about Uber, even Uber, who basically broke the law, like went into cities and kind of was like, taxi rules be damned, this is what we're doing, and they kind of shot first and asked questions later and like sorted it out, begged for forgiveness, and, right? Like,
do not shoot first and ask questions later because you might get shot.
Right, and so in the cannabis industry, but they were largely, people weren't like already looking at the industry under a microscope with lots of, it's not like there was, the DEA closely examining the taxi situation in every city, and as soon as Uber went in, like going after them, it was kind of this, oh, what's going on? Like we don't pay attention to taxis, like no one's doing that, and cannabis is not that way.
Totally.
And so to know that you are under a microscope from a government perspective, and to some extent from just like community perspective as well.
Yeah. The one thing I will say is that the cannabis industry is evolving, the sophistication of the founders is evolving, and the industry, and I like to think that we had a little bit of a part of this, is like the culture is evolving to kind of be more supportive of each other and to kind of push the boundaries and push back on the law a little bit more fervently and kind of make sure that the voices are heard. And it's really cool to be like in this transition point where it was previously a black market and people hid, to now people are keeping straight books and being public about what they're doing and giving back to the community and doing all the things that normal businesses do. And to be able to bring that Silicon Valley culture, which is very close to us, into the cannabis industry has been very rewarding. And, I think what's different between tech and here, where tech, like, I think you worry about the public first and then laws second. Here it's the other way around. Like, the public is largely in support of what
they might like what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean,
but that's not as relevant.
I was at the HustleCon speaker dinner last night and was speaking with a bunch of people, and just they're not involved in the cannabis industry, but they are consumers and have very real like medical stories that they had to find out the solution on their own, but it's completely changed their life. Right. And I'm like, it's stories like that lets me know that when Alistair is 15 and he looks back to what I was doing at this point in time, is like, it's very important to me to be on the right side of history, and kind of that's something that's actually come along after we started Gateway.
Yeah.
When we first launched,
that's right.
We didn't see anything wrong with the industry, but we saw a lot of founders that needed help and investors looking to invest in companies. And now I'm like, well, shit, we're doing God's work. We need to push this forward, and it needs to be not illegal in any fashion. And someday I do believe that we'll get there. It's just going to be a slog, right?
Yeah.
But so is building a company.
Yeah. I want to wrap up soon, but are there any Facebook or audience questions that we have? I see that there might be. Wait, I
see a microphone.
Young lady, do you have a question?
I do.
Wait, is your mic on?
So Ben, okay. I always get inspired when I hear you tell your story, and I wonder how much of your background and your hustle and your creativity plays in the type of entrepreneurs you actually choose to work with here at Gateway.
Yeah, I mean, yes, definitely. I have especially now, like being a father, like I'm very sensitive over how my time is used. And I have no patience for people that don't show curiosity and resourcefulness. In fact, I think there have, unfortunately, been some people in our portfolio where I have worn that on my sleeve. Yeah. And I will just shut them down and like, come back when you're ready to work. So yeah, I mean, that's like a non-starter for me. You might be a little bit more lenient, which is good, which is why you have a co-founder. We can talk about that.
I think I've changed, though, because I remember at the Founder Institute, I was not more lenient than you were.
Right. Well, there's always this weird dichotomy where people think I'm the nice one. And
Yeah.
Anyways, does
It's
that
bait,
answer?
It's
I
bait
mean,
and switch. I'm the nice one.
Right, exactly.
So do you think if they don't have sort of that hustle and drive that you're looking for, that they don't make good entrepreneurs?
Yeah. I mean, plain and simple, because there's so many times when you're building your business that something starts to fall apart or something needs to be done, and you need to have that, that pick up the ball and run type of mentality. Like, if you don't have that, your company is probably not going to survive, because someone that's always looking for someone else to do it or looking to find money to pay someone else to do it, they're never going to move fast enough, and they're just going to be stagnate, and it's a very bad situation to be in.
I mean, that's Princessa. You and I talked about your frustration with founders recently who were wanting your advice and basically saying, "Oh, well, you just do my deck for me," which is like, no, that's your job. Like, you
That's
you
your
don't
job.
outsource doing
It's
your
your
fucking
passion,
deck.
not mine.
Right? Yeah. And so, but that's kind of the resourcefulness of. It's not that you don't have to be that resourceful to figure out PowerPoint, but
Right.
there is a level of resourcefulness to figure out PowerPoint,
and,
right?
And again, so many people have said to me, it's like, oh, but I'm not a designer. I'm like, go online, get some fucking examples, copy it,
There's so many
and then
free
change it ever so
templates.
slightly.
Right.
Like, that's all you need to do. I'm like, there's
Yeah.
so many examples
There's
out
so
there.
much free
Really fired up.
yeah.
templates out there.
So many.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
Lots of resources.
Yeah.
Google is a very handy tool.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, cool. The last thing I want to do
Sure.
is this is preserved for posterity.
Okay.
Give Alistair a message about entrepreneurship or whatever that you want to, and it will be saved forever on YouTube, and he'll be able to come back to this later. He's only a couple weeks old right now.
Yeah, I mean, what I tell him is like, I will be your first investor. I'll be your coach. I'll be your mentor. But you have to earn it. It's not free. It will not be given. It will be earned. And you earn it by being curious and resourceful and trying and solving problems and doing all that kind of stuff that we look for.
Awesome.
And yeah, I will hand them The Art of the Start and all those cool books. We have a new list of books that we'll be releasing soon,
Yep.
about 15 books.
Yeah.
I just want him to grow up with that desire to want to know why, and like to get to the answer and be able to solve it himself.
All right. Thank you, Alistair. If you ever find an opportunity to use that against your father, here's the evidence. So, with that said, thank you all for watching. Again, we are on Facebook every Friday at 10 a.m. live. We're on YouTube. What else? I don't know. Podcasts, download iTunes. That's the thing I was thinking of.
Go
Google
find it.
Play, all that stuff. Go find it. Also, we now have a little bit more room for a studio audience. So if you want to be in the studio audience, just should they email you, Michael, or should they post on Facebook and say that they want to be, and you will reach out? Let's do that. That's easier. Comment and say, hey, I want to come to shows. Fine. We can get you into shows and
Or maybe even on.
maybe even on the show. And that's it. Thanks, everyone, and we will see you next week.
So yeah.